Taipei, a bustling Asian metropolis. When the sun sets and the city winds down, the children of Taipei can be found here. What? This is what a typical Friday night looks like in the life of Chen and Shen.
从6点左右开始一路上课上到晚上10点回家。
应该说下课就进班，基本上是每天都会来。
Week after week, tens of thousands of students just like them go from after school straight to cram school. What is it all for?
对，来补习班就是准备考试，
是为了拼一个比较好的学历吧。
Taiwan's school system is basically a survival game. You take a standardized test to place into middle school, then another test for high school placement. If you don't do well on these two tests, you're out. Test prep courses, shouting motivational slogans, and endless practice tests. Students must do whatever it takes to survive. And this isn't just a Taiwan thing. Japan, China, Singapore, and South Korea all have similar educational systems. Among the largest cities in East Asia, an average of 6 out of every 10 students attend cram schools. And it's not for nothing. In a 2018 PISA test, the top 3 countries in every subject were East Asian countries. And every single one of the top 10 students in the 2021 International Informatic Olympiad were all of Asian descent.
Oh wait, the guy from the United States is also Asian. Never mind. They're all Asian basically.
あまり驚きません。Okay, yeah. Seems right.
Seems right?
Yeah, obviously. So expected.
If you look at only test scores, the East Asian educational system is a huge success, but it all comes at a great cost. A literally great cost.
高中的全科花到将近10万，
全报的话是70-80万左右。
Plus, it's not for everyone.
高一的时候有去补习，下场很惨，成绩反而退步。
No. I'm sorry, no, because I was so devastated after that. I came home and I'm like, no, I don't want to leave home anymore.
So, if cram schools are so expensive and not always effective, why do so many East Asian countries still swear by them? And does being good at tests really mean you'll be good at life? How does cram school culture affect society as a whole? Question 1. Does being good at tests really mean you'll be good at life? The answer is absolutely. At least in ancient China, where testing reigned supreme. Here's a little story. This is Sun Jing, and this is Su Qing. They like to study, but studying makes them tired. So they did what typical people do. They took a nap. Then suddenly they realized they didn't want to be typical people. So Sun Jing took a rope, tied his hair to a pillar. That way he could study without falling asleep. Su Qing, on his end, took a sharp awl and stabbed himself every time he felt sleepy. Then he could study harder and longer. In the end, both these men became important officials in history, and their stories were combined and memorialized in the Chinese language as an idiom.
悬梁刺股的故事，
对，以前国文课有教过这样子。
努力不懈一直读书吧。
The idiom 悬梁刺股 is still widely used to this day, which shows how being hardcore in your studies is fully ingrained in Chinese culture. Even the emperor in those days had to show his respect towards scholars.
也就是说，在传统的一个社会里面，我们强调的就是勤学苦读。勤学苦读是一切成功的保证。
And there was one test that ensured the Chinese love for studying would last thousands of years: the imperial examinations. The imperial examinations were a series of tests to select candidates for government positions. A student in the early 1600s would have to first pass a series of examinations to become a holder of a basic degree, or 秀才. That's when the real testing would begin. The 秀才 would then have to pass the provincial exam and then the metropolitan exam. You fail, you lose. According to Qing Dynasty records, out of 10 million people, only 5 successfully went from Shouzai all the way to passing the metropolitan exam. You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning. Many people went well into their 40s and 50s, still trying to pass the first apprentice exam. But for those top gunners who made it to the end, the final palace exam was administered by the emperor himself. These lucky few received a new wardrobe, financial security, and honor for their family. All you needed was to get right with this test. Ancient Chinese people studied hard in hopes of a better life. And since Chinese culture had a huge influence on surrounding areas, studiousness became a core value in the countries we know today as East Asia.
사농공상이라고 해가지고 공부를 하는, 나중에 그 정부에서 조정에서 일을 하는 이런 학자들, 선비들이 사회적 입지가 가장 높아요.
2,000 years later, people in East Asia still fervently believe in the importance of studying. But can such values really pass down through the millennia?
那原先我的想法也大致上是这样子，可后来发现其实没那么简单。能够让家里的孩子长期的去准备科举考试，其实那在总人口的百分比里面其实是不多的。我们如果要去思考说，在今天的社会，为什么升学主义的影响这么大的时候，我们得去思考一个问题，是因为我们今天的社会开始现代化。
After the Second World War, several East Asian economies experienced rapid growth. Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore were known as the 4 Asian Tigers. And many well-known global brands from this region were formed during this period. In this post-war Reconstruction period, the 4 Asian Tigers dazzled the international community, and this is largely attributed to the East Asian emphasis on education. But good education wasn't enough. These countries needed a way to sift through the masses to find the leaders among them.
要走向管理决策、领导这阶层的学生，其实不需要那么多，好，所以他在高中的时候就筛掉一次，只有30%的可以念高中，然后高中升大学的时候再筛掉一次，那最后的胜利者呢，他就去念了大学。
So if you knew there were only a few spots in the winner's circle, getting one means you're set for life. Power, money, opportunities. What would you do? You'd fight for it, and fight hard. The game is on. And the best training grounds for these little gladiators? Cram schools. Want to do well on the exams that will pretty much determine the rest of your life? Come cram with us.
大致上我们可以看到2件事情，它在交互作用。一个因素是来自于传统因素，一个因素是来自于现代化的因素。那这整个加起来呢，在学校的部分我们叫做升学主义，在社会的部分我们叫文凭主义。
2,000 years of examination culture coupled with the modern need for competitiveness. Welcome to the age of Asian cram schools and credentialism. In Taiwan, you can find a convenience store on almost every block. But the reality is, there are even more cram schools than convenience stores. Meet Zhan Hao and Zhou Jie. They've been teaching at cram schools for
10几年
，30年左右。
They're 2 of the most famous cram school teachers in Taiwan.
升学主义在20-30年前，我刚踏入补教界的时候是非常非常严重的，让补习班的生意是欣欣向荣。
以前会有所谓的半夜要来排队，会有爸爸妈妈要代替来排队抽号码牌，因为我们一个教室的大小很大嘛，可能离黑板太远。
这里是7楼，他会这样一直排到1楼。
Parents know the power of having good credentials, and now they want their kids to understand too. They also want them to hear their wishes, so they bring various offerings as well as their child's exam admission ticket, and they pray for the best results. Because when so much is at stake, luck plays an important role too.
我们会有一个传承的活动，上来跟每一位学长握手，把这个考试的好手气传给学弟妹。
就主要也是怕孩子未来长大之后，这个没有办法顺利结婚，没有办法买房子，没有办法买车子，对不对？所以就为了怕这些事情啊。
花了无数的心力跟资源，只为了让孩子能够得到这么好的一个机会。那这过程中是很辛苦的，他是非常理性的。
Everything was building to this, the big moment.
初能学测共通試験
NEET and JEE.
Known by different names in different countries, but its purpose and pressure are the same. University, entrance, exam. In South Korea, students study for an average of 11 hours a day. Some parents even set up a study cube for their kids. And in rapidly developing China and India, where competition is intense, entire towns have cropped up that are dedicated to cramming. You literally move into one giant cram school. Talk about immersion.
People care about credit so much because, if you don't have a particular credit, the top-notch companies, the top universities, they all have a cutoff.
In all these different places, the goal is the same. Most people, well, at least most parents, believe that good credentials are the golden ticket to a good life. But what do kids sacrifice to get that golden ticket?
就会很累，
比较累，
蛮多压力的，对。
现在来讲，就是会觉得成绩比任何东西都重要。
会有点把学生压得喘不过气的感觉。
I would show my mom like a grade. I'd be like, "Yo, mom, I got 100 on this quiz." My mom would be like, "100分是应该的." We're just like, in English, it's like you should be getting 100%. And I never understood that.
頭がいい人は優秀な人間。僕はなんかできない、でき損ないっていう印象もあって、塾に行かず、ずっと駅に座ってぼーっとしてたっていう時期もありました。
And sometimes the pressure can even be physical.
近视就蛮多的，近视应该有8个9个。
至少10个有9个会有近视的问题，对。
거의 다 그렇죠. 거의 다 10명 모두 다 그렇죠.
Studies show that 80 to 90% of East Asian students have myopia, which might directly relate to the amount of time they spend studying indoors. The discontent of the youth grows just like myopia. And credentialism created generations of anxious helicopter parents and pressure-ridden myopic children. But is this focus on academics just an Asian thing?
I think in Russia, students who take school very seriously do go to cram school or do have private tutors, but it's not as popular as here in Taiwan, where at least half of the students will go.
Actually, it is. One study shows that more than 50% of Russian students pay for cram schools or tutoring. If you include free government resources, Russia actually has the world's highest rate of cram schools and tutoring, more than South Korea. Over half the countries included in the study had rates of cram school and tutoring of 50% or more. And this included countries we don't usually associate with high academic achievement. Although this can mean different things in different places, most seem to agree that having a good degree is crucial to success, including this guy. Former US President Trump is very proud of his credentials, and he wants to make sure everyone knows about it.
I'm highly educated. I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I went to the Wharton School of Finance.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I was a very fine student.
He even found a way to weaponize credentialism.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
You might be thinking that guy is a bit of an exception. But one look at politicians in American and European countries, and you'll see that credentials do matter. The UK government has often been criticized for drawing its cabinet members from the same few private schools. And it's not just about power. How much money you earn seems directly correlated with your credentials. Take that Ivy League that Trump loves to talk about. Graduates of Ivy League schools in America have a 1 in 5 chance of becoming the top 1% in wealth. Which touches on another issue. To even have a chance to go to those schools, you kind of have to be somebody. 2 out of 3 Ivy League students come from families in the top 20% of income in America. Whether it's academics, art, or sports, these families come prepared.
I was at a dance studio and I saw this 6-year-old kid doing this one thing movement over and over again. And then in the waiting room is his mom on the phone, and it looks just like the mom waiting to pick their child up from piano lessons. It's like the same image.
Renowned American philosopher Michael Sandel has written on the problems of credentialism. He believes that going to a good school basically makes you a winner. You get the best teachers, mingle with other winners, and come out extremely confident. If you didn't make it into a good school, you're either not intelligent or not hardworking enough. But what if the game is rigged from the start?
我在差不多20岁的时候，开始在美国的青年监狱有一个算是兼职半当志工的一个机会。我站在他们面前，常常去反思是什么原因让同样年纪的我们，可是一个人站在这个老师的角色，然后一群人穿着受刑人的这个制服，那跟他们相处之后，我会真的很深刻的意识到，其实他们没有比我不聪明，甚至他们没有比我不努力。但是差别最大的是我们所身处环境的幸运，让我们接触到不一样的资源，以及不同的际遇。
We talk about education a lot, like it's a magic word.
Education, education, and education.
People believe in its power.
If you don't have a well-educated workforce, you're going to be left behind. If you don't have a good education, then it is going to be hard for you to find a job that pays a living wage.
In most countries, the rules of the game have become oversimplified, and getting into a good university is the only result that counts. Instead of making the world more equal and efficient, education has become a glorified measuring stick. Go to the right school, and you're a winner for life. Everyone else, better luck next time.
There should be some kind of filtering for getting into something, but pressuring into the credits that you have to reach this, you have to get it, then only you'll be good. I don't support that.
最大的一个问题就是我们对人才的想象是非常非常的狭窄的，因为大家的价值观是完全一样的，然后我们要抹杀所有的差异。那当一个社会所有的人都在想这件事情的时候，那就是这个社会的灾难。
Back in East Asia, the hometown of hard studying, countries are actually trying to change. South Korea rolled out its National Online Education System, EBS, which gives students who can't afford cram school an opportunity to beef up their studies.
그나마 이런 프로그램들을 통해서 되게 경쟁이 치열한 이런 사회를 좀 더 바꾸고자 좀 더 노력을 기울이는 것 같아요. So
Taiwan has also seen a wave of startups in the education industry. The number of experimental education companies went from 0 to 250 in just 7 years. Many East Asian countries have been pushing education reform in recent years. They hope new curriculums will foster more diverse and self-motivated students. Of course, these reforms won't change things overnight, but at least people are aware of the problem.
学校最重要的目的就是让每个孩子的潜能发展到最好。我们有没有那种胆量去面对大家的差异，想尽办法让每个差异都能够在他的范围里面成为最好的人才。
接下来的时代比较大的挑战是我们会有，这个世界会有很多新的这个变化，那新的产业的更迭，他们会遇到很多问题是过去历史上没出现过，那只能靠他们自己去找解方的时候，怎么改变他们，让他们有那个自信跟信心去面对一个陌生的、从来没有解决过的问题，然后有信心去解决它。那我想这个是接下来我们的教育最大的挑战。
As for the cram schools, although they may seem a bit extreme, it's not all dungeons and whips. You might be surprised to hear that some students actually like it.
没听懂的部分可以再听一次，我觉得是不错的。
我蛮喜欢补习班这个地方的。来补习班最主要是让我可以读书，有读书的欲望。
我觉得这边的老师很好玩，活泼一点的风格这样。
每一次榜单都是我亲自为学生贴上去的，对，这是我最开心的一件事情。
In some ways, these students are lucky to be sitting in a classroom. They come from different backgrounds, families, and schools, but at least they all have a chance to get ahead here.
我常常被问类似的问题，我希望我自己的孩子去补习吗？我希望我的孩子读这样的学校吗？我希望我的孩子怎么样吗？但我常常会先觉得问这些问题的预设是蛮有趣的，因为好像我希望我孩子怎么样，我就会让他怎么样，那个主导权好像完全是在我自己身上。但是我其实觉得这些问题终究是我们要让孩子或帮助孩子，也可以为自己去做判断、选择，跟理解的。
We've talked a lot about cram school, academics, and testing. Student life is hardcore. But maybe it's time we ask the main characters of our story what they think.
Being bored is kind of important. Right?
Yeah, I think that's a good quote.
Being bored is kind of important because if I didn't have the free time being bored with my friends, then we wouldn't try to like learn something. There's like this rap show in Taiwan, you know, what's it called? MTV The Rappers, Dashi Has to Die. I want to get on that show. I think it'd be fun to be on that show.
僕はその古文漢文が一番好きな科目だったんですけれども、それも自分で勉強して自分で好きな部分を見つけて好きになったので。
I love dancing. So they never told me that I can't do that because they gave me equal opportunities to do that and the studies. I understood, okay, it's not that I want to pursue in my mainstream. I want to study science because that is something always made me question things.
I want to contribute to technology, so that's basically my goal, and I'm willing to do anything for that.
我晚上或是平日晚上或者假日，其实蛮多时间在算数学或是解题目这样子。数学可以说是我的兴趣，没错。
The education system is an ever-changing experiment. We try to set reasonable goals and give students a good direction in life. But these goals and expectations must change with the changing times. Maybe someday, even no goal can be a good goal to work toward. Because cram school culture is not just something that's so Asian. It's something all future generations will need to think about.